I matched with him on a Tuesday between med passes, my back against the wall by the blanket warmer, break room fluorescents making everything look like a fish tank. I wasn't looking for fireworks, just a distraction between vitals and charting. His name was Brad. His photos were aggressively normal. Baseball cap, a patio with string lights, one golden retriever that looked borrowed. His bio said IT runner, coffee addict. We traded safe questions on Bumble. Where do you hike? What shift are you on? Do you like spicy food? He used a lot of smiley faces. It all felt padded and beige. 2 days later, he said the app notifications bugged him. Here's my number? Sure, I thought. I was at the Pyxis anyway, badge beeping, thinking about my patient's 0200S, how my feet were already bruised from the 12 before. I texted him a hello so he'd have my contact and slid my phone into my scrub pocket. It buzzed before I got the drawer closed. Then again. I glanced. A preview of skin and a word I won't type. 2 photos, unsolicited, flesh-lit by bathroom light. Then a paragraph about everything he wanted to do to me, with time stamps for after my shift. I locked my phone like it had burned me and laughed under my breath, because that's how you keep the air in your lungs when someone smashes your boundaries like a cup. At 3 a.m., between 4 alarms and a call light symphony, I messaged, "Hey, no. I'm at work. Don't send me stuff like that." I kept it clean, professional, nurse voice. The reply came like a hand on the back of my neck. "You led me on. You matched. Don't be a tease." Then the taps became a flood. Question, accusation, apology, threat, all in a cycle. 50-something texts before 5 a.m. My phone jittered across the countertop in the med room. One of the LPNs joked, "Girl, you got fans," and I smiled with my teeth and turned the volume off. By shift change, he'd called 17 times. Each missed call had a voicemail thumbnail, like a row of leeches. The preview on the last one read, "Call me back or I'm blocking you forever," like he was offering me mercy. I drove home on autopilot, my head full of charting I hoped I'd done right, my body vibrating from caffeine and strip-lit hours. I parked on my street under the gum trees and stared at my phone. The message bubbles stacked and stacked, small gray coffins. I blocked the number without listening to a single voice, tossed the phone onto the passenger seat, and sat a moment. My apartment window glowed lion's mane yellow. I wanted silence the way you want cold water after a marathon. An hour later, another number texted. "Not so easy to get rid of me." "Then, you owe me an explanation." "Then, what kind of nurse are you?" The tone changed with each new area code, pleading, wheedling, mean. I blocked them as fast as they arrived, like smashing bugs with a shoe. By midnight, my block list looked like a raffle bowl. I put a dumb sitcom on to drown the buzz and ate toast over the sink. At 2:03 a.m., my phone rang with a local number. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again immediately, like a drip on metal. Something in me broke. I picked up without thinking. No hello, no preamble, just a voice I didn't know yet, but would come to recognize in my bones. Calm, almost bored. "Why are you ignoring me?" A beat. "I'm outside your house. Your living room light is too bright for this hour." My blood went cold in that slow, educational way. "How do you?" I swallowed. "How do you know where I live?" He chuckled, soft and manicured. "You posted a picture, remember? The fall one. Boots and leggings by your mailbox. Cute. House number right there. You really should be more careful." I dropped to the floor and crawled away from the window, the way people do in movies and also in actual life. My breath sounded like someone else's. I hung up and hit 911. The operator came on steady and warm as a blanket from the dryer. I gave my address, whispered that there was a man in a car outside. She told me to turn off lights if I could and stay away from the front. I pinched the living room lamp off and the room shrank, edges going soft. I peeled the curtain back a fraction. A black sedan idled across the street, driver's side toward me, one hand draped over the wheel. I couldn't see his face, but I could feel the gaze of someone who believes they've already arrived. "Units are on their way," the dispatcher said. "You're doing great. Are you alone?" That word made the floor tilt. "No," I lied. "My roommate is asleep." She told me to stay on the line. My own apartment suddenly had too many reflective surfaces. My lamp, my TV dark but glossy, the microwave door. I felt watched by my own things. I grabbed a tote, shoved my wallet and charger and a hoodie inside, and crept to the back stairwell. My hands shook so hard the keys made a chime. The cold iron smell of the stairwell steadied me. Outside, the alley hummed like a refrigerator. I slid into my car and didn't turn on the lights until I was at the end of the block. I drove to Sarah's place across town with my heart in my mouth and the dispatcher's voice in my ear. Sarah opened the door in pajama shorts, eyes wide and already full of rage on my behalf. I slept on her couch with the TV low, a rerun murmuring to keep the void away. At 3:12 a.m., officers found a black sedan parked opposite my place. When the cruiser turned the corner, the sedan rolled away slow and polite. They got the plate. The next morning, I sat in a small interview room at the precinct with bad coffee and fluorescent hum, a motif apparently, and told a tired detective about Bumble, about pictures I didn't want and messages I didn't answer, and a voice that knew my lamp. He printed the texts I'd screenshotted until the stack looked like a thesis. He told me to petition for a temporary restraining order. They'd send a car by my place at random intervals for a while. He said, almost gently, "You were right to leave." At the courthouse, a judge with iron gray hair and reading glasses skimmed the call log and the plate and the phrase, "I see your lights are on." He signed without theatrics. The stamp thudded like a door closing. The order felt like paper armor, better than nothing, not enough to sleep in. I went back to Sarah's for 3 nights. On day 2, I sat on her living room rug and scrubbed my online self until she squeaked. I deleted the mailbox photo. I went through 3 years of posts and pried off location tags, unfollowed anybody I didn't know in the oxygenated world, killed old albums that had my street in the background. I turned off geotagging for everything and set my accounts to private, so hard it felt like a bunker door. A patrol car called to say they'd matched the plate to Brad. They'd knocked on his apartment door that morning. He told them it was a misunderstanding, that he'd just been in the neighborhood. The order would make future misunderstandings more expensive. I saved the case number in my notes app and labeled it with a skull emoji because I didn't know what else to name fear. The bus stop outside the office looks different after 9. In daylight, it's all lanyards and sensible shoes and the hiss of espresso machines. After hours, the glass of the shelter turns into a mirror, and the city starts speaking in a lower register. I'd stayed late, finishing a quarterly deck the client would probably skim. My eyes felt like dry beans. Wind off the river found the seams in my coat and went straight through. Chicago does that, doesn't negotiate. The sidewalk clicked along in little herds of people still in work faces, an Uber light hovering like a lazy firefly at the curb. I checked the transit app. 9 minutes until my bus. Not bad. I sat at the end of the bench so nobody would wedge me in, bag on my lap, thumb scrolling nothing. The shelter smelled faintly of old rain and cheap cleaner. I told myself I'd make toast when I got home, maybe peanut butter, maybe Marmite if I was feeling homesick and brave. Small plans like sandbags against a bigger feeling. His arrival didn't feel like someone joining me. It felt like a shadow stepping closer. He dropped beside me hard enough to jiggle the bench. There was room. He picked close. Wrinkled button-down, old jeans with oil knees, hair slicked back with something that failed, and a stale beer reek that floated off him like a weather system. Middle-aged, maybe older, but drink and city can carve years the way rivers carve stone. "What a bloody day," he announced, voice frayed and raw. I didn't look up. He didn't need audience. Boss is a prick. Whole place is a circus. They don't promote the blokes who do the work, They promote the ones with the soft hands. His arm brushed mine. The contact felt deliberate and absent-minded at once, like tapping a bar to check if it's sticky. A warm hand landed on my shoulder without consent, then withdrew. He laughed at nothing. The shelter's ad poster, some wholesome family holding juice, glowed beside us like a witness who'd chosen not to testify. I shifted, sliding down, creating space. He slid too, keeping the gap identical, a human copy-paste. The crowd around us was the worst kind, dense enough to hide in, not dense enough to matter. The vehicles whispered and roared. The bus ETA ticked from 9 to 8 to 7 like a heartbeat, then back to 8 because the app is a liar and the city doesn't care what you need. "You look like you need a drink," he said. That was when he grabbed my wrist. Not hard at first. Testing. Thumbs pressed where the pulse sits. "Come on. I know a place up the road, proper prices." "I'm good," I said, placing my accent somewhere between here and home, soft edges to make it uninteresting. "Nah, come on, don't be like that," he chuckled, and the chuckle skipped the laugh and landed on a word I didn't like. He tightened. Pain then. Not waves, just pressure. If I jerked, it would become a scene. If I didn't, it already was one. His breath got closer, a damp heat that meandered between tooth decay and cheap whiskey. He squeezed. "We're both alone, right?" I looked up the block and caught a small blessing. 5 office types spilling out of a glass lobby, lanyards bouncing. A woman in a blazer looking my way for half a second. I held her gaze. She broke it, quick, like a bird seeing a window too late. The man stood, hauling on my arm like we were dancing to a song I couldn't hear. "Don't embarrass me," he hissed. His hand had decided my bones were handles. My legs stayed seated stubbornly, like a toddler in a high chair. I could hear my mum in my head. "Don't make a story where you're the one people talk about." Also my gran, "Don't let any oak make you small, Catchy." Both were correct and unhelpful in the same moment. "Jess!" It burst from behind him, as if the city had pressed the right button. A woman about my age, sharp bob, tidy suit, smart shoes that didn't mess with her stride. She didn't look at him. She aimed a big, warm grin at me and walked like she was arriving late to my birthday party. "We're late," she sang. "Mike is going to kill us." I matched her smile before the fear could think twice. "I know," I said, standing into her reach. Her arm slid through mine, grip solid, practiced. She executed a perfect sideways step that placed her body between his and mine. It was choreography, not chaos. He blinked, hand empty of my wrist. "Who are you?" he spat, drunk polite falling off him like flakes. She didn't address him at all. "They've already ordered appetizers," she told me. "You promised you'd behave." Her eyebrow did a tiny scold that told me how the rest of the play would go. She tugged. I moved. His hand hovered dumbly in the air before falling. We walked. "Oi!" he barked and took a half step like a dog testing an electric fence, then lay back when he felt the voltage. Witnesses, a new arrangement of bodies, a world not doing what he'd written. We rounded the corner, past a noodle shop steaming out into the cold, past a closed boutique that reflected us like a warning. The wind found us again. We didn't drop the theater until the bus stop was a block and a life away. She let go and the temperature in my bones changed. "Are you okay?" she asked, quieter than the city, eyes scanning back the way we came. "I'm Anna." "Ja," I said, then actually checked in with my body. My wrist throbbed. My shoulder tingled like a limb waking. My throat had something in it that wasn't a word. "I'm okay. Danky. Thank you." She shrugged like it was nothing, and like it wasn't. "It's easier to pretend than to confront," she said. "People prefer a scene they understand." She opened her purse, pulled a business card, scribbled a cell on the back. "If you ever need a friend at the bus stop, text me. I'm here too late most nights." We hovered under a street lamp and let it crown us both. The wind licked the skirts of our coats. An Uber idled. A taxi coughed. The world reassembled around our new facts. "Do you want me to wait with you?" she asked. I looked at the ETA, lying again, and at her shoes and at the small stack of fear in my chest. "I'm going to take a cab," I said. "Tonight I'll let myself be silly." "Silly is cheap," she said. We smiled, both knowing it isn't, but pretending for the sake of movement. From the corner of my eye I saw him again, half a block back, pacing the edge of the sidewalk like a shark testing a tank. He looked thinner from here, smaller, like the shape a stain takes after you've scrubbed but not fully. He wasn't following us now. He was talking at a new passerby who had the headphones armor on. The passerby veered. The drunk man turned his complaints on the building. He was a mobile weather advisory, patches of aggression, scattered entitlement. We cut under the taxi sign. The driver flicked the meter with a bored thumb. "You got her?" Anna asked him, eyes hard enough to bend air. He nodded. "Ja," I said again and slipped into the seat. She shut the door with a neat, decisive click that sounded like a small spell. As we pulled away, I watched her in the mirror. She stood with her arms crossed, back to the wind, a person-shaped no. Rex tucked himself under the bench the way he always does, nose to my boot, a warm weight that says we've done this 1,000 times and we'll do it 1,000 more. Evening commuter rush had thinned to a late swell. Coats crackling, paper bags, the metal breath of the green line rolling us south. I can map a carriage by ear in 10 seconds. The couple whispering too close, the kid tapping trainers, the man asleep with a soft snore that keeps time with the track joints. It's a comfort, that little orchestra. Tonight, one instrument didn't belong. No keys, no phone clicks. He was made of coat swish and stillness. The kind of quiet that looks back at you. I didn't stare, there's nothing to stare with. But every time the train shivered through a curve I could plot him from the sounds he didn't make. Polished soles gave a dry chirp when he adjusted his weight. His aftershave was clean and mean, bank lobby sharp, no sweetness. When we hit the long dark between stations, I heard a tiny metallic tap now and then, like a coin ringing a ring. Not fidgety, not nervous. Measuring. Rex flicked an ear and leaned a hair into my shin. Our code for something's up. I slid my palm to his ruff, breathed slow to keep him steady, and maybe keep myself from shattering. At my stop, the doors sighed open. People hurried off with that city reluctance. On with it, then. I rose, gave Rex the quiet forward, and we went out into the tiled echo. Neon hummed. Far above, the cold threaded itself through a stairwell. The platform had emptied enough that each footstep belonged to someone. His were 15 meters behind, polite distance, deliberate pace, heels that arrived a half second after mine like a shadow catching up. I didn't go home. You don't give a stranger a map to your door. We took a right at the stairs, then a left at the top, then another right, simple little knots around the block. He took each turn with us, never closing, never dropping, breath easy. When I feigned a rummage in my bag under a street lamp, Rex sat and wagged exactly once, a good boy theater trick, and in that wag I heard it again. The coin tap against metal. He wanted me to notice something, or he wanted to notice me noticing. The neighborhood has a daytime laugh, cafes and prams and delivery bikes, and a night spine made of Victorian brick and narrow alleys that taste of bin bags and rain. I chose one of those alleys and slid into it sideways with Rex, my back against the wall, palm finding old mortar and the history of 1,000 winters. If he kept walking, we'd be grand. If he followed, there'd be a pinch point and time to decide. He stopped at the mouth of the alley. I could tell by the way the traffic noise wrapped him, sound bending around a rock in a stream. He set something down with a soft leather sigh. The coin rang once, then a brief clatter of small metal bits meeting, separating, arranging. It's funny the things your brain has waiting on a shelf. My dad was a locksmith back home for 30 years. I grew up on the sound of tiny gods slotting into place. These were picks. Rex didn't growl. He went still in a way that said, "We're rabbits, not wolves." Good. I slipped the phone from my pocket and, by feel, double-tapped the shortcut that turns Rex's harness camera on. I use it for crossing videos and to argue with taxi drivers about no dogs. Tonight it made a quiet plastic tick. I lifted the lens towards the street glow and opened the emergency text app. Some of Chicago takes text to 911. I'd checked the day I bought Rex. I typed with a thumb. I kept telling to be a thumb. Blind. Hiding an alley off 53rd by the deli. Man outside. Sounds like lockpicks. Following me from the L. The reply came faster than my relief. Units en route. Stay hidden. Any distinguishing sounds? Coin on metal. Polished shoes. Aftershave. Briefcase. I added, not drunk. That mattered. Out on the pavement, he breathed through his nose and checked his phone with a glass tap that was almost gentle. I held mine to my chest and felt my heart hit the case. The alley dripped somewhere near my ear. A rat inspected us, decided we weren't edible, carried on. I pictured the man just out of sight. Neat suit, cheap coin ring, little roll of tools and soft leather. The exact confidence of someone whose work requires doors to be suggestions. He stepped just inside the alley mouth. Not far. Just enough to learn our air. Rex pressed his ribs to my shin, so I'd know which way the man leaned. The coin ticked the ring twice, plink, plink, and then he did a small, impossible thing. He hummed the thinnest thread of a tune. Not a song, not really. Just a line climbing 2 notes then falling 1, over and over, like someone trying keys in a lock. Headlights washed the brick. The hum stopped. Boots, heavier than his, took the corner. A radio breathed static. CPD. You good in there? A voice called, not too loud, not too near. He walked away, not a run, not fear. A tidy exit. The coin rang again, distant now, a magician palming the final card. I didn't stand until a second voice said my name properly. 2 officers came into our thin city of damp brick and grime, and Rex did his trained relief wiggle that makes me want to cry and laugh at the same time. We stepped out into a world suddenly full of sound. Traffic again, a bus sighing, someone dropping a bottle 2 blocks over. I told them what I'd heard. Lockpicks, I said, and one of them made a noise like he'd been waiting for that word all week. We've had similar, he said. Follow off transit, learn the routine, see where the key goes. We've been trying to catch a bloke with a suit and a bag. Thanks for not leading him home. They offered a lift, I took it. You can be proud on Tuesday, when your heart's working again. They crawled my block once to make sure the coin man hadn't left us a gift. Inside my building, everything smelled of damp coats and old carpet and the 1,000 lives of other people. Safe, yes, and thin, like pastry you can see light through. The classroom was always too cold, like the air conditioning was a lesson in endurance. Psych 101 summer session. A long rectangle of flickering tubes above, a whiteboard that never quite erased, and 20 students arranged like spare parts. I sat 3 seats from the door, so I could leave without scraping my chair. The clock above the exit made a tired plastic click every minute that sounded like a tiny door locking. The first time I noticed him was week 1, a late arrival with music leaking from his phone and no bag, no notebook, just that grin people wear when rules are a suggestion. He slid into the back, sprawled like a question, and the smell of citrus aftershave drifted forward, sharp and clean. The name on the roster was Kyle. He argued with Mrs. Anderson about the syllabus like it owed him money, and then he didn't show for 3 classes in a row. When he came back, he wasn't late anymore. He was right on time, 2 minutes before the hour, when the room is most exposed, when you look up and make eye contact without meaning to. He started watching me. Not obvious at first, just the sense of a pencil lifted above paper. In the corner of my eye, his stare flat and patient. When class ended, I moved fast, binder, phone, bag, and slipped out into the corridor where the building smelled like dust and printer toner. The hallway tiles echoed each footstep twice. He was always there already somehow, leaning on the wall like he was waiting for an elevator that never came. If I slowed to tie my shoe, he slowed. If I waited by the water fountain for a crowd to pass, he waited across from me, pretending to scroll. I thought I was inventing it. I was far from home and trying to be small, visa letters in a folder, my mother's voice in my pocket at odd hours. Be careful, beta, don't create issues. So I changed my route. One day the side stairs, the next the courtyard past the vending machines with their hum like bees. He adjusted. He didn't speak. He didn't smile. He kept that citrus cloud around him, and the click of cheap soles that stuck the tiniest bit on polished floor. We became 2 magnets set to attraction, while pretending to be iron filings. Week 3, the corridor scene happened. Him screaming at the dean, spit stringing between words, security radio crackling. They let him go with a warning. After that, nobody wanted to sit near him. He didn't care. He began to ask me questions when the door opened, and we couldn't avoid sharing the same air. You drive the red Civic, right? Eyes on my keys. Do you always park in lot C? Flat voice, not curiosity so much as inventory. You take the English class on Tuesdays, don't you? Not a question. A statement trying on a question's clothes. I bought headphones and wore them like armor, even when there was no music. He talked anyway, words like hooks tossed into a pond, waiting for something to catch. The first time he beat me to my car, the lot was a mirror of heat. The campus quieted after 10 p.m. in a way that felt like a held breath. Streetlights made islands. The Civic looked small and obedient under a sodium lamp. He leaned against my hood as if we were old friends meeting at dusk. He didn't touch the paint. He used the edge of his jeans pocket, the way careful people do when they want you to know they can be careful. Nice car, he said. Up close, his pupils were too big for noon. A pale crescent of a scar nicked his lip. The citrus was stronger here, medical at the edges. I have to go, I said in the voice my parents taught me for border control and bank managers. Polite until it hurts. He stepped aside graciously. I'll walk you out, he said, already doing it. I told Mrs. Anderson the next day. Her cardigan was a soft armor. Her pen was a spear. She listened with her full face. She did not say I was overreacting. She did not say boys are like that. She said, okay, like a door closing, and walked me to my car after class. Kyle didn't follow that first time. He leaned in the shade of the stairwell and watched the 2 of us cross the lot, his jaw working on nothing. For a week, she met me at the door with her bag on her shoulder, and I felt the relief of 2 shadows instead of 1. Then Kyle vanished for 2 class meetings. The room felt larger, the air warmer. I told myself it was over. On the 3rd day he returned, thinner, eyes bruised by some private weather. He sat in the back and didn't pretend to take notes. He just stared at the board like he was trying to memorize the paint. Class emptied. He was suddenly next to my desk, close enough that I could count the stitches in his shirt. I'll be waiting for you, he said, very gently, like he was promising not to be late. Then he walked out, no hurry, the citrus scent folding behind him like a curtain. Mrs. Anderson stood so quickly her chair skidded. Stay, she told the rest of the class, and called security with the steadiness of someone dialing a number she'd always known she would dial. The guard who arrived had knuckles like doorknobs, and wrote my name carefully on a pad that kept sliding off his palm. He told us he'd review cameras and walk me to my car. Kyle was not in sight, but the emptiness had his shape. The security office hummed with recycled air and old coffee. They pulled up feeds from cameras I'd never noticed. Grainy angles of doors, parking lots, stairwells, the cafeteria's slanted light. Timestamps stacked like teeth. Even on days he'd missed class, his white sedan appeared in different corners of Lot C, nosing up near my Civic. On one screen he leaned close to my passenger window, cupping his hands against the glass to cancel his own reflection. He wrote something in a small notebook, short, precise movements, then walked away, glancing up at the cap of the camera as if to say, "See, I'm not hiding." On another screen he stood outside the English building, back to a pillar, looking not at the door but at his phone, where a calendar notification glowed purple. Thursday, 10 o'clock. My other class. They interviewed other students who remembered odd questions, harmless at the time. Does she live with roommates? Does she ever take the bus? Does she stay after class to ask questions? The answers had become a net. Administration moved faster than schools usually do. Conduct code, section something, zero tolerance, words that feel like punctuation. They called him in. He told them I'd been flirting, that eye contact is consent if you keep it long enough, that kindness is a door. He said he thought we were already in a relationship. He used the phrase mixed signals like a spell. They expelled him. They banned him from campus in a letter with words so flat they were almost a floor. They told me to call the police if I saw him again. They printed a copy for me on heavy paper and stapled the corner twice. The staples looked like teeth. After that, the summer session drifted by like a boat you're already on. I parked in different places and counted my steps. I learned the sound of my own car unlocking and how it differed from other cars. Tiny differences that mattered at 9:45 p.m. under a failing light. I told my mother everything and nothing. I'm okay. Classes are fine. I bought pepper spray and held it in my fist the way YouTube taught me. Mrs. Anderson kept walking with me for a while, at odd times so there was no pattern to map, and we spoke about anything except what we were doing. She asked about food I missed from home. I asked about her cat. We created noise to cover the shape of the thing we were not naming. I booked him because the app said reliable, and because I was out of choices by lunchtime. Dinner with a client at 7 o'clock at a place on King West, the kind that won't forgive you twice. Jesse, my usual sitter, texted at 8:12 a.m., fever, chills, sorry. I messaged 3 neighbors, got 3 polite no's. By noon I downloaded Babysit 24, uploaded a picture of Liam with a bowl of blueberries, ticked bedtime routine, and light dinner, and posted. 5 p.m. to 9:30 p.m., downtown condo, background check required. Ryan pinged in 2 minutes. 19 U of T student, clean police check badge, 4 stars, great with Lego and picky eaters. 3 reviews that all use the phrase on time. At 5:15 the app chirped its cheerful tone. Your sitter is arriving. His dot slid onto my street and turned green. I stood by the door, shoes on, coat draped over my arm, Liam's pajamas folded on the banister. The bell didn't ring. The dot pulsed. I watched the peephole on and off for 5 straight minutes, saw only my own fisheye hallway bubbling back at me. I sent a quick in-app message. Hey, third door from the corner with the silver mailbox. Nothing. I checked the lobby camera on my phone. A courier dragging parcels, an older woman in a red scarf, no lanky teenager with a Babysit 24 lanyard. By 5:30, the dot was still green, still arrived, and Liam was asking why I was still home if my important supper was so important. At 5:45 I canceled the dinner. I typed a paragraph to the client about child care falling through and sent it before I could dress it up. The app still showed Ryan on site. My calls went to voicemail. His profile photo, soft jaw, backward cap, a neutral nothing face, smiled up at me from my screen like the icon of a dead program. I ordered pizza, poured Liam some milk, and decided to be the kind of mom who owns a ruined evening. By 7:30 the doorbell rang. I checked the peephole, tall, awkward, a backpack slung over one shoulder, a laminated Babysit 24 card on a blue lanyard flashing when it caught the porch light. He waved and gave an apologetic smile as if we'd just missed each other by seconds. I opened the door a crack. You're 2 hours late. Sorry, he said, like it was a mispronounced street name. I got turned around. Can I come in now? No, I said and closed the door. I stood there with my ear against the wood, heart thudding. He didn't knock again. I checked the side window and saw his car, dark compact, engine idling, plume of exhaust soft as breath. He sat in the driver's seat with his phone up under the wheel, tilting it back and forth. Playing a game, I told myself, though the movement didn't look like play. I let the curtain fall and went back to the couch. Liam asked if that was the pizza. I said no, it was a silly person. We watched animals sing. The pizza came and the night moved on. 10 minutes later I checked the door again. He was standing flush to it, so close that the peephole swallowed him into distortion. Soft hairline, cheek in a curved slice, breath fogging the glass around the bevel. He kept very still. Not listening, exactly resting. Shoes planted, backpack strapped tight. I stayed just as still on my side, a mirror of his stillness, as if we were playing a game with rules I didn't know. He slid out of frame without footsteps. I took 3 small, deliberate breaths, then crossed the hall to the side yard window. He was there, moving along the wall, head tilted as he tried the casements one by one. He didn't yank. He pressed, patient and light, like you test a ripe fruit. He checked the catches, eyes sliding to the frames, then over his shoulder, then back. My stomach dropped in a quick, clean fall. I walked on quiet feet to the kitchen and lifted the curtain by a finger width. He was at the back now, in the square of our tiny yard where Liam's plastic dump truck lived, peering at the sliding door. He set his hand flat on the glass like he was practicing for fingerprints, then watched the faint outline of his hand until it warmed and vanished. He tried the handle once, slow, as if noise was a fine he couldn't afford to pay. Then he moved along to the basement window, knee in the dirt, palm to the screen, searching for the line where the mesh met the frame. My hands didn't feel like mine as I took Liam upstairs. He went quiet when he saw my face and climbed, sock feet careful on the carpeted steps. In my room I turned the lock and dragged the dresser an inch, then another, the wood groaning like an animal. I dialed 911. My voice came out polite, the way we are when we ask for help here. "Hi, there's a man outside my house trying the windows." He was a booked babysitter who arrived 2 hours late, and now he's checking everything. The operator's voice had weather in it, steady and practiced. She asked my address, told me to stay on the line, to keep the lights off, to keep away from the windows. Liam was a warm knot against my hip, heartbeat quick. We listened. The house has sounds, the furnace tick, the fridge's little complaint, the hum of the porch light. His sounds slid over them, the dry shuffle of shoe rubber on deck boards, the dull thud of a screen's frame settling back after a test, the metallic breath of a handle turned almost enough. He moved back to the porch. He knocked, 3 slow knocks spaced like the marks of a metronome. Then he knocked faster, all knuckles, then once with the heel of his hand so the wood boomed, a hollow drum. He didn't shout. He didn't call a name. The operator murmured that officers were close. Blue light smudged the blinds a minute later. I watched through a slat as 2 uniforms came up the walk with their flashlights low. Ryan stood in the middle of the path, arms crossed, phone in his fingers, mouth moving fast. I couldn't hear words through glass and carpet and my own blood in my ears, but I could read the shape of it. He was the injured party. He'd come to work. He'd been turned away. He held up his phone like a warrant. One officer went to the door and I lowered the deadbolt, passed my phone through the chain so she could speak to dispatch, then opened as far as the chain let me and explained. The app, the no-show, the arrived, that never knocked, the hour in between, the window checks as if he were tasting my house. They spoke to him again. He gestured for so long his hand shook. When the officers pointed to the doorbell camera, to the dead time between his arrival and his knock, to his own wheels still idling, when they asked why he'd walked my perimeter, his mouth kept moving but no answer landed. He said I owed him money. He said I'd scammed him. He said he was only trying to do his job. The silence after each claim felt wet. They asked him to leave. He argued. He left, finally, in a squeal that marked the curb and the night both. Inside, the officers took the report with the thoroughness of people who know how thin paper can be and still matter. They called the app from my living room, speaker on, got a tired manager who apologized and temporarily deactivated Ryan's account while we all listened to a keyboard clatter. The manager's voice had the shape of concern and the edges of liability. "We'll review this internally," he said. The officers gave me the non-emergency number and told me to call if any car idled on my block longer than it should. "You did the right thing by not engaging," one said, and I nodded like I'd chosen something brave rather than the only thing left. We hit Fairy Tale Valley just after the sun gave up, that weird Atlanta hour when the sky is purple and the pines look like they're leaning in to listen. Me and Ethan had been talking big all week. One last explore before the demo cruise flattened the place. My mom would have said, "Face your book, not trouble." But she wasn't there and Ethan was already sliding over the chain link, sneaker toes flashing white. I followed, palms catching on a twist of wire. The fence rattled like cutlery in a drawer. On the other side the air changed, cooler, sour with wet plywood and old fryer oil. Fairytale Valley wasn't a big park. It felt like someone's dream on a budget. Concrete pads where rides used to be, a painted castle gate now missing 2 turrets, and animal murals with eyes rubbed off, so they looked like they'd learned something they shouldn't. Pine needles carpeted everything. Kudzu had one elbow around a dead light pole like they were posing for a photo. 2 security lights buzzed near the snack bar, blinking the way tired people blink. We took the main path. Our sneakers ground glass into glitter. Ethan kept stopping to take pictures for the group. Angles of rust, a swan boat with its face scraped, a dragon car stripped to ribs. He loves that stuff. Me, I love the quiet right before you decide you're done and head home. The quiet tonight was heavy though, like the place had swallowed a cough and was holding it. By the old popcorn stand, I stopped to read a happily ever after summer banner that hadn't got the memo. Something about it made my cheeks feel cold. I turned and saw a shape in the half-light. He stood under the buzzing lamp like a bad idea. A man in a jacket a few shades darker than the dark, baseball cap pulled low, posture that said he'd been standing there a while. I thought security. But he had no radio, no belt, no patch. Just hands in pockets and stillness, like a comma at the end of a sentence. "You lads aren't supposed to be in here," he said. Voice rough, not angry, dragged across gravel. Ethan tried as usual. "Sorry, we're just taking pictures, we'll leave." But the man cut his eyes at him, then at me, and something inside me flinched. He stepped closer, and the light found the split in his jacket sleeve, and a long scrape down his jaw like he'd argued with concrete and lost. He lifted his right hand out of his pocket. Not empty. Big pipe wrench, red paint flaked to silver where it mattered. He didn't brandish it, just let it hang low, head heavy like the kind of dog that only needs to bark once. A tiny metal clink sounded when it touched his leg. The sound landed inside my chest. "Come along," he said. "I'll show you out." Ethan's laugh was a mistake. It was nothing, a puff of breath, but it sounded like we'd agreed to something. The man's eyes sharpened, and he raised the wrench an inch. Across the park, a loose panel knocked 3 times in the breeze, like someone politely asking to come in. "A beg," I said under my breath, a word I use when I'm joking and when I'm not. I touched Ethan's sleeve. "Let's go." We backed up. The man moved when we moved, nothing sudden, footsteps heavy like he was remembering how to do it. He glanced over his shoulder once, quick, the way you check if your friend is where he's supposed to be. The hairs on my arms tried to climb out. He started humming then. It took a second to place it. If you're happy and you know it, but wrong, the rhythm flat, the notes like someone stepping on a toy piano. When he reached the clap parts, he gave the wrench a tiny swing, metal whispering air. The first swing missed me by 30 feet, and still I felt it. "Gates this way," he said, not looking where he pointed. "You shouldn't have come. You've seen too much." Ethan's hand slid down my wrist until we were hand to hand like little kids crossing a street. We both nodded. We both lied. We ran. The path bucked under us, cracks, bolts, a pipe mouth half buried that grabbed my heel. I stumbled, scraped skin off 3 fingers, tasted pennies. Ethan hauled me up without looking back. The park rearranged into a maze. Ticket booth with glass teeth, the square of mud where a flume used to be, the carousel pad with its circle of anchor bolts looking like a summoning. The lights pulsed and made the shadows jump. The humming didn't stop, it just got breathier. Metal hit metal, clang, wrench on railing. "Don't run," he called, not angry, not pleading, practical, like he was telling us the weather. "Don't turn your backs." We cut across a bed of weeds that used to host swans. Plastic feathers cracked underfoot. The fence rose in front of us, 12 feet of chain link, barbed wire gift wrapped along the top. Ethan went first, ankles and elbows everywhere, the fence singing with the effort. My fingers burned on the wire, the blood on my palm made me slip. The fence shuddered as the man grabbed it from the other side. He wasn't out of breath. He didn't sound like he had a heart. He shook once, twice, like testing whether a door deserved respect. I got my knee over, the barbs kissed my jeans and tried to keep a souvenir. I dropped and hit with both feet, in a pain that felt instructive. Ethan grabbed my backpack, and we sprinted for the car we'd stashed down the street, both of us trying not to look like prey. I looked back. Couldn't help it. The man stood on the other side of the fence, face in the rhombus of wire, the wrench's jaw catching the light, humming now so soft it was almost not humming. Behind him, a second figure shifted, just a shoulder, a sleeve, a quiet. It could have been a sheet lifting in the wind. It wasn't. In the car, I fumbled the keys and dropped them, and the sound of them hitting the footwell was the loudest thing I ever heard. The engine turned over like it had opinions about leaving. We rolled slow at first because panic likes to stall you, then faster, then properly. Neither of us said a thing until we hit the main road, and other people's headlights vaccinated us against the dark. At Ethan's kitchen table his brother listened while we bled adrenaline into words. "They've had folks living out there," he said finally, voice low so the walls wouldn't hear. "Squatters, copper thieves. Some are just trying to not die. Some will make you the story." He set a glass of water in front of me like communion. We watched the news for days after. Nothing about us. A paragraph online about increased patrols, and trespassers will be prosecuted. A week later we drove past in broad daylight. The fence had grown a foot and learned barbed wire. New signs: no trespassing / 24HR monitoring / violators will be arrested. There was fresh tractor tread where something heavy had been dragged away. The funhouse windows were boarded up with screw heads that flashed like little eyes. That night my phone threw me a photo from memories. It was a shot I took right before we ran. A bad, shaky frame of the popcorn stand, my thumb blurring the corner. I almost deleted it, then I saw it. In the glass behind the counter, a reflection. Not me, not Ethan. A face under a cap, wrench held across his body like a baby. The reflection was wrong in the way reflections get when glass is old. His eyes looked open too wide, as if the light was a thing you catch. I locked my screen. I locked the front door. Then I checked the back because that's what you do now. Ethan doesn't explore anymore. Me either. Sometimes I hear that off-key humming, soft as a dead battery, and I think of my mum again. "Not every story is yours to enter," she says in my head. "Not so trouble starts." I'd been on the road since midnight, a Kiwi in a rented Outback eating up the desert one white line at a time. Phoenix was behind me like a fever that had finally broken. The clock on the dash said 4:07 a.m., the kind of hour that takes your thoughts apart with long fingernails. The highway, I-40 eastbound, was arrow straight, a wire pulled tight across black soil and corn that whispered even without wind. Headlights turned the world into a tunnel. The radio gave up on music miles ago, just a gauzy veil of static with a ghost of an oldie drifting in and out like a drowning man's hand. I fought the nods, window cracked for cold, coffee biting my tongue, fingers drumming the wheel in dumb little patterns I didn't remember starting. I told myself, make Holbrook before sunrise, then it'll be sweet. Then I saw the blink. Hazards low and slow, two red eyelids opening and closing above the ditch. A late model Ford pickup, blue or black, nose down in wet grass 20 feet off the shoulder, as if it had tried to burrow and given up. No glass, no skid, no story you could read from the tarmac. Just the truck turned at an angle that made the back of my neck prickle and the grass around it heavy with dew, tall enough to hide a crouch. I put my indicator on. I even felt the click under my finger. That's how close I came to stopping. Then the thought slithered up. If it were me, hazard lights or not, I'd be standing in the beam, waving my arms like a man on fire. No silhouette, no movement, just the blink. My thumb eased the stalk back. I let the pickup slide past the mirror, its red pulse shrinking to a single ember, and then nothing as the road bent a whisper to the right. I told myself someone had called it in. I told myself you don't stop on an American highway at 4 a.m. unless you want a story told about you. The radio hissed agreement. Somewhere far ahead a semi coughed and downshifted. The sound fell on me a minute later like a tired wave. 10 minutes, maybe 12, and the clock said 4:19. Tail lights flowered in the distance, too low for a truck, too nervous to be anything else. A Toyota sedan, silver scared into white by my beams, doing 35 in a 75, riding the white line like a drunk hugging the bar. I tucked in behind, gave him the kindness of space, waited for the straight to straighten. He never touched his brakes. He never wobbled. He just oozed left and right, a controlled drift that said either old man or trouble. When the blacktop ironed itself flat, I checked mirrors, signaled, slid out to pass. As I came level I looked, because you do. The driver was a man mid-40s, cap pulled low. His hands were vice-tight on 10 and 2. His face was a color you only see on people who work night shifts. The blue of dashboard light washed over bone. His eyes were wrong. Too open, too still, like he was watching a film only he could see. He didn't look at me. Not a twitch. I nosed ahead, relieved to have him falling into the mirror. The relief lasted 10 heartbeats. The Toyota grew in the glass as if reeled in by wire. From a polite distance to kisses on my bumper in a single, stupid minute. High beams detonated, filling my car with white. I tapped my brake just enough to flare a warning. He didn't back off. He peeled left, came up along my flank, matched my speed with a gentleness that made my teeth hurt. He kept his face forward, as if I were a smudge on the window, and lifted his right hand off the wheel. One finger extended. He jabbed over and over at the shoulder. His mouth worked, words I couldn't hear, sentences I didn't want. I held my line. He held his perfectly. The corn flickered by like film burn. The road rose and fell by inches, we rose and fell with it. A mile like that? 2. His finger turned into a fist, and he drove it down through the air, a little pantomime of smashing. I scanned for exits and found none. The green signs had abandoned this stretch like everyone else. He cut in front of me without a signal, a neat diagonal that would have impressed me daytime. His brake lights flared like a wound. He stopped across the lanes at an angle, nose to the center line, tail to the shoulder. The dust he kicked up drifted back across my bonnet like smoke. My headlights painted him in a hard, surgical white. His door flew open. He came out quick, metal in his hand that caught my beams and flashed a straight, clean smile, crowbar long and simple. There's a small animal in your chest that decides sometimes. It decided. I wrenched the wheel right, felt the tires mutter on the paint, then dropped from the asphalt with a thump that emptied my lungs. The Outback bucked onto a dirt farm road that cut like a scar between the corn. The suspension took it personally. Gravel hammered the floor pan. The steering wheel went light, then heavy, then light again, like wrestling a fish. In the mirror, the man jogged after me, then stumbled, one knee sinking into mud with a wet chunk that made me think of a shovel. The farm road twisted between walls of corn that leaned in, whispering sticky things. The sky was a grade school gray that made me think of dead chalk. The speedo needle wobbled somewhere stupid for the surface. I let it. The road spat me onto an old county blacktop not on my sat-nav, its center stripe half gone like a memory. I turned left on coin flip instinct. The left felt like town. The left felt like lights. I didn't breathe until I saw them. A service station 2 miles on, fluorescent canopy buzzing, one stray Uda idling by the door. I pulled in fast enough to make the pump shudder, killed the engine, but not the tremor in my hands. I locked the doors, called 911, and spoke with the flat, careful calm of someone holding a broken egg. I gave highway, mile marker, description, everything I could prise out of my head. Toyota Silver, late model, male, cap, crowbar. The dispatcher was soft and precise. "Are you safe?" she said. "Stay there. Officer en route." While I waited, I thought about the pickup nose down in wet grass with its blinking eyes. I thought about what the Toyota had done with his finger. I thought about how easy it is to be a good person and a dead one. A cruiser slid in 10 minutes later, no siren, just presence. The officer had the look of a man who slept in his boots. He took notes with a blunt pencil, as if he was carving them into wood. He asked if I'd seen anything else odd. I told him about the hazard lights. He winced the way you wince when you hear a familiar joke told by someone who doesn't know the punchline. "We've had a few," he said, voice dry as fence posts. "They use bait cars. You stop, one comes from the corn, or they box you like he tried. Best thing you did was not stopping." Dawn sketched itself onto the edges of things while he wrote. He told me to vary my routes, call in hazards from somewhere lit, never on the shoulder. He asked if I wanted an escort to the freeway. I said yes without pretending pride. I only nipped out for milk and cereal, that was all. Kids were with me the next morning, and the cupboards had that hollow sound, the kind that makes you feel like a useless dad. Double shift had wrung me out. My thumbs still smelled of oil from the shop. It was just past 11, a cold Tuesday, car park shining with that greasy rain you only see under floodlights. I told myself, in out, kettle on, lunches sorted. Inside was too bright. Fluorescents hummed like midges, long aisles scrubbed to hospital gloss. The night cleaner dragged her mop in slow figure eights, and a pair of shelf stackers were building a soupkin cathedral, whispering the way lads do when they're trying not to be heard. Somewhere a chiller coughed. I grabbed baskets instead of a trolley, kept my head down, skim-read prices. Texted the ex about the yogurt brand. Strawberry only, the little one throws a fit with peach. You become efficient when you're skint and tired. You become quick. That's when I clocked him. Beanie pulled low, dark jacket, older than me but not old. He moved like he didn't belong to the place. No dithering, no list. Just stood at the cereal, eyes roving, then sliding to me. You know when someone's pretending to read a label that's facing the wrong way? Like that. I kept going. Bread, juice, snack bars. Every turn, there he was, already waiting at the end of the aisle, like he'd been placed there between blinks. I told myself stories to make it small. He's staff off shift. He's waiting for his missus. He's drunk and needs a warm room to stand in. He crouched near the bottom shelf and didn't touch a thing. When he looked up, our eyes met, and it felt like a hand pressed against my chest from inside. No expression. Just that blank, greasy interest. A tick too, a little click in his throat every few breaths, like he was swallowing a pill that wouldn't go down. Hey mate, you right? I said, more to test my voice than anything. He walked away without walking. That slow glide some men have when they know they won't be stopped. I hurried the self-checkout. The girl on till had earbuds in, chewing gum with a soft, wet sound. I scanned milk, cereal, yogurts, bread. The screen beeped out a rhythm that felt too loud. Bags in hand, I went through the sliding doors and the cold hit my teeth. The car park looked like an empty swimming pool. Silver puddles, islands of light, shadows packed up in the corners. My truck sat under a lamp, a Ford Ranger that's more rust than paint but faithful as a dog. Something about the shape was wrong. Lower. Sullen. By the time my head knew, my feet already knew. The glass at my toes winked like frost. For tires sagged into themselves, sidewalls slit like smiles. Headlamps punched in, filaments snagged in the cracks. There was that smell, hot rubber and cold rain, and something burnt, a chemical tang like a plastic kettle left on the hob. I stared long enough to feel ridiculous. This is a trick, I thought, like when the brain draws faces in wallpaper. Then I heard it, a shoe sole sticking and lifting, deliberate and slow. I turned, and they were already stepping out from between cars. Two of them, coats heavy, caps low. Beanie was the one on the left. Both held bats the way you hold umbrellas when you're not sure it's going to rain. Casual, but pointed the right way. The closest one rolled his wrist once, a little warm-up twist, and the tip nicked the side of a van with a sound like someone snapping a pencil. The Beanie Man did that throat click. I could see in the glass of the shop doors that my shoulders had risen to my ears. I didn't say anything. I dropped the shopping, milk jug rolling, yogurt bursting into a pale blossom on the tarmac. Boots slipped once, those slick patches where oil sits under the rain, and I caught myself with a ham fist on the bollard. The doors looked far until they were close. I hit them with too much speed and the sensor sulked. They opened like they were considering it. I spilled through, and the air changed as if I'd opened a freezer. The security guard at the desk took one look at me and stood up. Big lad, white mustache, eyes like he'd seen enough. Lock M, I managed. He slammed the bar across with a clatter that felt medieval. The bat stopped 6 feet from the glass and tapped once, twice, as if listening to the echo. One of the men smiled at his own reflection. It wasn't a happy smile. It was someone checking his gums. The guard lifted the phone and the radio in a kind of practiced two-step. He didn't ask me what happened. He didn't need my story to understand the ending. We watched together. Beanie's eyes slid across the signage, the cameras, the lens glare smeared by rain. He put 2 fingers to the glass and drew a line down it, slow as if cutting a cake. Then they turned as one and walked, not hurried, to a dark Land Rover crouched low 2 rows over. Old Discovery, plates dirty enough to be anything. The engine coughed, coughed again like it hated the idea of being useful, then idled as they sank inside. Headlights flushed the windows white, and I felt myself flinch at the brightness, even though I knew it was coming. The guard breathed out through his mustache. You picked the right direction, he said, still watching the lot. He kept me by the desk until the coppers rolled up with the bleary patience of people who solve the same problem every night. I told them Beanie, bats, Discovery, throat click, the lot. We ran the footage on the tiny monitor that always makes people look like ghosts. 2 men smudging between cars, faces turned away, rain drawing lines between them and us. We'll get a tow, the officer said. You're safer inside. Got kids in the morning, I said, like that explained anything. Perhaps it did. Maybe that was why my legs had picked the doors without a vote. It took an hour for the tow. Long enough for the cleaner to loop back to the doors and mop the milk blossom out into the rain. Long enough for the manager to offer me a chair twice and me to refuse it twice, because sitting felt like surrender. My phone jittered on the desk with messages from my ex. Still okay? Lunches? Don't forget the allergy bars. I typed that the truck had died. It was a better truth when you're dividing the world into what the children need to know and what they don't. The tow lad was young and underdressed, hoodie wet to the elbows, chain clinking like a necklace for a giant. He whistled low at my headlights and swept glass with a curved shovel. "Seen this up Central," he said. "Not here." "Now you have," I said, and sounded older than I meant. Home came in a borrowed hatchback the next day, the Ranger sulking at the body shop. Insurance wanted forms with tiny boxes, and the garage wanted a deposit with numbers that made my eyes blur. The kids climbed in after school and watched me with the seriousness children have when they know they're supposed to be joking. "You look tired," my lad said. I told him I'd slept badly. It was true. I had dreams where tires were lungs and air was leaving.